It's simple, really. Great stories with a good cup of tea. It's the Tea with Mike show. Please welcome to the Tea with Mike show, Brett Webster. How's it going today, Brett?
Doing great, Mike. Thank you for having me. How about yourself?
Pretty good, thank you. Excited to chat today. So, do you want to start by telling everyone where you grew up?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm basically born and raised Alberta story. I did spend a little bit of time in Ontario when I was younger, but for the most part, it's always been central Alberta. I was actually born in a little town known as Pinoka, and then I kind of migrated myself to Red Deer when I was a teenager, and yeah, that's pretty much where I've spent most of my time. I'm living in Edmonton now, but I always consider central Alberta home.
So, growing up, what was some of your favorite childhood memories?
Ooh, um, I mean, from the local area, I think all kids, whether you're Western or not, I think all kids look forward to like the Stampede every year. That's always especially coming from an area where it's getting better, but there wasn't always a lot going on. So that was something for me. And I've always been a diehard Oilers fan my whole life. So I remember a lot of the old like Oilers playoff memories, especially, like back in like the Ryan Smith days and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess those would probably be some from the home area.
So, obviously, sports and then spending a lot of time outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, like we're blessed, and you know what? I kind of took this for granted until recent years. But when I was a kid, we would go hiking all the time, go hit like the Rockies, either, exterior Alberta or into BC. And that was always something I look forward to every year. And then in my early adult life, I kind of took it for granted and I stopped doing those things. And that's been kind of a silver lining to the pandemic for me is I've kind of reignited the passion for getting out and doing hikes and just seeing all the beauty that we have in our backyard. So yeah, it's cool to have that.
Yes, agreed. And we're also fortunate to have that as an outlet, especially like right now with the way the world is. And you think
Yeah,
about what it'd
absolutely.
be like if we didn't have some of those things that you rightly said that we'd take for granted, like the rest of the time.
Absolutely. And yeah, a cool little side story with that as well. So one of the things that really reminded me how fortunate we are to have that, a couple years ago, I got to do a tour with an artist from the UK, and he was like a pretty legendary artist. It was a huge opportunity for me. So in my mind, this guy's seen everything, he's done everything, like he's not going to be impressed. But when the tour started, he talked about how his grandpa always had a photo of Lake Louise in their place. So he's always wanted to see Lake Louise. So we took him in between tour stops to see Lake Louise and Moraine Lake and some places like that. And like it was like seeing a kid in the candy shop for the first time. Like he was so just mesmerized by it. And I was like, wow, like I've been taking this for granted. This is really special. So yeah, I'm thankful for that and thankful that I got to go explore that area more.
Nice. And so, what was Brett like in school? What were kind of some of your favorite subjects?
Um, I've always been the type of person that if something interests me or it's something I'm passionate about, then I will do really well learning it and I will be really engaged. But if it doesn't interest me, then it's very painful for me to try to force myself to be into it. So yeah, I guess that would probably sum up my school life. If it was a subject that I enjoyed, then I was really good. If not, then I was pretty disconnected. But I always enjoyed like the social and history aspect of learning. How things have gotten where they are and why people have become what they are has always been an interest for me. So yeah, like social history was really well. I've always loved the arts, so anything art oriented or even like English or language oriented. I've always kind of thought any of the topics with like a gray area where you can kind of think with an open mind as long as you can back up your thoughts. I've always loved engaging in stuff like that.
Awesome. And so, was music a part of your life growing up? Was it something that you did in school, or was it kind of outside of school?
Yeah, it's always been a pretty huge part of my life. My mom is very musical. She was a singer in a band when I was a kid, and she still sings. Like that's what her friends come over and do still to this day. She has a little karaoke machine and they belt it out all night. They love it. So music was constantly playing in my house when I was a kid, and my father is actually a drummer as well. So yeah, I kind of feel like it's always been something that's flown through me.
Wow, that's interesting. And so, is so music something that you kind of like fell naturally in love with? It wasn't like forced or anything like that. It was just always around you in the home environment.
Yeah, that's and yeah, it was just music was constantly playing when I was growing up, and then it was something that I kind of gravitated towards. Yeah, it just kind of happened naturally. Especially when I was younger, I was always like I loved acting and I loved um, just playing music for people and entertaining. Like even like back to my toddler days, I remember like my parents telling stories of like they would have company and I would have to force them to watch me like recreate a Michael Jackson music video or something like that. So yeah, I guess it's just always kind of been there.
Music that that you think about like when you were growing up?
That's a tough one. When I was younger, I really loved like Michael Jackson, Prince, even like some James Brown. Like I really loved like kind of like the Motown vibe and like the R&B that kind of turned into pop vibe. So those were kind of like my first like real influences, I guess you'd say. And then I don't even recall, like I think it was actually an older cousin that was the main reason that I got into like hip hop and electronic music. I had an older cousin that would always show me like Beastie Boys or Ice Cube or even like some of the Daft Punk albums. And I just remember being mesmerized before I was old. I wasn't old enough to even understand a lot of the content at that time, but I was just like, man, this sounds amazing. This is where I want to be.
So did you learn to play any instruments when you were younger?
You know what? That's kind of the funny part. I actually never did. When I first got into music, I started just writing lyrics and songwriting. So I would even just like hop on YouTube and find like instrumentals of songs that I'd like or whatever, and just start writing over that, trying to just learn the process of songwriting. And then eventually, I got into production, which has become like my main staple. And after I got into production and learned more about music theory and song structure, then I actually took a piano course. So I do play piano now, which helps my production huge, but I actually didn't learn that until quite a bit later into life.
So we're gonna have a staple tea fact for the episode, and then I'm gonna ask you about your tea drinking habits. So get
Okay.
thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so the tea fact for the episode is there's a day dedicated to tea called National Tea Day. It falls on April 21st, so I didn't know, but we actually just missed it. And it's also a coincidence because it falls on Queen Elizabeth's birthday. And
Oh,
that
crazy.
comes from alwaystheholidays.com/tfact. So just a little educational point on tea.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
So of course I have to ask, like, what is your favorite type of tea? What are your tea drinking habits?
I like an Earl Grey. That's usually my go-to. Usually for me, it's kind of a like obviously I don't drink it too late. But for me, it's kind of a wind down thing. If I usually try to wake up, go through my morning routine, have a productive afternoon, get everything that I wanted to get done for the day, and then the tea is kind of like my symbol to myself that like, okay, I can unwind now, get out of grind mode, and kind of relax and enjoy the rest of the day. So that's usually that's what I associate tea with actually. So.
How much tea do you drink a day?
I usually would just be one cup.
Okay, so tea for you, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of more of a symbol that you've accomplished a lot in a day. That's how you build it into your routine.
Yeah, to be honest, that is actually it, and it kind of just clicked in my head that that is the case as well. But yeah, yeah, usually for me, I wake up, go through my routine, make sure that I hydrate and hit like my meal plans or whatever for the day, and then the tea is kind of that symbol to break up the day, and now it's me time.
Nice. And do you always drink Earl Grey
Most of the time, yeah.
most of the time?
If you
Nice.
have if you have any suggestions, send them my way. I'm always open to try different things. So.
My, I guess, signature tea that I drink like all the time is Yorkshire tea. So that's kind of like a strong black tea. The brand of tea that I like is made by somebody called Taylor's, and actually based in the UK. So that's the tea that I drink. But actually, recently I started, because I'm trying to expand my palates, seeing as I drink a lot of tea, right? So, and I just started drinking chai tea, and there's a local company in town called the Chai Wallers, which make a lot of chai tea, and they're inspired by the Wallers and the rituals of in India. And so I did a little collaboration with them recently, and this sent me some of the tea, and like chai tea, especially with like the sweetness of honey in it. It's
I
really,
do like that. That is really
yeah.
good. Yeah.
It was addicting. It was like the first time I had chai tea, and it's definitely something I'm going to keep drinking, especially as we head into summer, because instead of the traditional kind of like hot tea, you can, like, it's
I
kind of
was gonna
nice, a
say
little
summertime. I
colder and
do
a little
love
iced.
a nice tea. Yeah.
And so, what do you think's the most challenging thing about learning to play instruments?
Um, for me, like usually if somebody was to come up to me and say they want to get into production, but they have no idea where to start, what I would suggest is learning music theory, which is actually a step that I find a lot of like electronic producers skip because they don't realize how vital it is. But for me, like I said, I started out in music kind of just self-taught writing lyrics. Like I learned how to count bars and the basics of music structure, but I didn't really understand music theory. So as far as like your keys, what's going to work well together. So for me, that was probably the toughest hurdle for me through my journey was just, and I still feel like there's a lot for me to further comprehend with that because it's such a vast world that you can dive into. But for me, that was probably the toughest hurdle. So that would probably be like if somebody was telling me that they're just getting into production, that's always the first step that I tell people to take.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what house music is?
Um, So yeah, house music is one of the many forms or subgenres of electronic music. House music is known for its they call it four to the floor, so 4x4 beat type. So basically, every bar in a song is four beats. So every time there's four beats, that would count as a bar as for music structure. House music is known for having a kick drum on every beat. So every 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a drum. So that's where you get that constant movement with the music that makes people want to nod their heads, or why it's called dance music. So yeah, that would probably be the main thing that sets it apart as house music.
So, how did you become interested in house music?
So yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier. When I was a kid, my older cousin and honestly even my mom and her friends loved Daft Punk. So Daft Punk was my first like real introduction into the house music world. I remember hearing Around the World and just being like, "Whoa, what is this? Like I've never heard a bass line like that before." So from an early age, I've had an appreciation for it, and they were probably the spark of that. But when I first started writing and creating music, I was actually more hip hop oriented because that was mostly what I listened to and took inspiration from when I was growing up. But years ago, I guess this would probably be about 5 years ago now, there used to be a festival in Alberta known as Boonstock, and I was booked there as a like under my hip hop project. And when I went there, a bunch of my friends were like, "Dude, you got to come check out some of these artists. Like the house lineup out here is crazy. You have to come check this out." So I actually got introduced to Prime Avicii. That was like one of the first house sets that I ever saw was Prime Avicii. And yeah, I was just like mesmerized by that. And as the weekend went on, we went to more sets, and I just saw like at that time, I feel like the hip hop scene was going a little bit of a toxic direction. I didn't like a lot of the lyrical content, and I felt like the shows were, so full of ego, and the crowds were always brawling, or, there was always something going on. And then my friends took me to these house sets, and I just looked around, and all I saw was people hugging each other, high-fiving, everybody dancing, everybody has smiles on their faces. And I was just like, wow, this is beautiful. So the music stuck with me, and I just always remember those first experiences in the house music scene, just seeing how much of a loving culture it was. And I was just like, yeah, I think this is, it kind of sparked a little bit of a change in direction for me musically, and I've been putting my focus towards creating that. But I also try to bridge the gap and bring in a lot of that like hip hop and R&B influence into the stuff that I create with house music. So yeah, it's been kind of a cool journey, and I think it was probably meant to take those windy roads along the way to learn it all.
And so in your bio, you describe yourself as prayer hands, a producer, a DJ, a lover of pizza, and a believer in the gospel of house music. So talk to us how you got a little bit of the backstory and how you got from high school to developing prayer hands, and maybe some of the things you kind of learned along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as I was kind of just mentioning, when I was in high school, that's when I think I was about 16 when I first started like really writing lyrics and songwriting, and getting more into it, started performing and trying to put myself out there as an artist. So I spent quite a few years honing that and being a hip hop artist. Started out as just an MC and a songwriter, and then eventually I learned the production side of things and started making my own beats for my hip hop stuff. One of my bigger influences and inspirations, I got to play a couple shows with Dr. Fresh, who's a pretty well-established name in the house music world. He was kind of the one that helped spark the idea of launching another alias and doing it strictly for the house production. And we were trying to spitball ideas back and forth and think of what the name should be for the house project. And we did a show together, and a few people came up and wanted pictures with us. And without even realizing it, subconsciously my reaction when people compliment or want pictures or anything is always just to do this, just to show the gratitude, do the bow. And Tony, Dr. Fresh, was like, dude, do you even realize that you do that every time? And I was like, oh, no, I guess not. Like, it just kind of happens. And he's like, you're just prayer hands. It just happened. And then I was just like, boom, that's the name. So yeah, that's how the prayer hands name and branding kind of came to be. And yeah, for me, it almost sounds like a cliche, but it really is true. House music is something that I feel in my soul. It almost feels like a spiritual experience, like when you're standing on a dance floor. Or like I said, the community was a huge part of me falling in love and wanting to learn more about it and wanting to eventually create it. So yeah, I would definitely say that was a huge part of it. And it kind of just, everything kind of just fell into place and felt right with the name, the project, the direction of it.
What's your favorite type of pizza?
Ooh, you know what? This one's going to be controversial because I see it shared on the internet all the time. But I think people need to grow up and embrace a little bit of contrast and flavors. I love pineapple on pizza. So Hawaiian, or if you can mix it up, there's a tropical chicken one with pineapple, incredible. So yeah, those would probably be my favorites if I had to pick.
That's a good choice, because if I was answering that question, probably my number one favorite pizza is also like Hawaiian pizza.
Nice.
I think just the freshness with the ham, or it's just a really great combination. Not too heavy on the meat side. I do like meat pizzas, but I think that's the right balance between fruit and vegetables and meat. So yeah, I would also go Hawaiian.
Nice to meet a fellow pineapple pizza lover.
So that's another debate for another day, but
Yeah.
it's always interesting how it causes so much controversy, right?
Yeah, it's so hilarious.
So what are some of the skills that you've needed to develop to become involved in the global health scene?
Um, I think this is a really interesting and challenging time to be an artist because back in the day, well, actually, you know what? I think there's pros and cons to where we are right now. Back in the day, it was probably a lot harder to get discovered without the internet. Like I think, you would have no choice but to move to a city where the opportunities are. So, in that sense, it's probably nicer for us now because you can pretty much launch yourself from anywhere with the power of the internet. But the flip side to that is back in the day, artists were kind of just artists. All they had to do was create a good product and record labels or whatever would do the rest. But nowadays, it's so rare, especially in the electronic music scene, it's so rare for a label to want to give you like a full career type deal. Like you might get a single signed here or there, but for the most part, you're your own promoter, you're your own producer, you're your own, marketing director. So yeah, you really have to be well rounded to make a name for yourself these days. Because even if the few lucky ones that do land like a full record deal, they've made a name for themselves so that the labels are like, okay, we can't miss with this person. Like, look at the following they have. So they still had to take those steps in the first place anyway. So on top of, obviously, number one is obviously creating good music. So had to learn production for that. So yeah, for me, it was just learning, a lot of the online aspect. Ableton is the program that I use for production. So learning the ins and outs of that. I took a few online courses for that. A lot of like self-taught stuff, watching YouTube tutorials and stuff as well. I combine a lot of my songwriting skills from earlier years in as well, whether it's me doing the vocals or if I'm writing vocals for somebody else that's going to do them for me. I do still incorporate a lot of songwriting into that. As I mentioned earlier, I did take a piano class just to be more familiar with the keyboard and learn, my music theory more, which keys are going to sound good together, which notes. So yeah, on the music side, that was kind of the process for creating the good product musically. And then, yeah, I've spent a lot of years working with production companies, whether it be, being an artist for them or actually just, being part of the street team, helping sell tickets for events, helping behind the scenes with events, picking artists up at the airport, dropping them off wherever they need to be, etc. So lots of just behind the scenes networking, which eventually leads to doors opening for you when you're in the right position for them. Lots of online marketing. I feel bad for everybody who's friends with me online because I spam so much promotion all the time, but it's what you have to do to stay relevant. So yeah, just kind of a full, well-rounded. You can't just be an artist anymore. You have to be an artist, promoter, marketing, PR. Yeah, so
many different things to think about, and only so much time in a day too, right? So
it is a balancing act.
So obviously you just rattled off a whole bunch of different things that you need to be good at. So I guess which of those have been the most challenging to learn, and why?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not much of a technology buff, which is kind of strange compared to most like electronic producers you would talk to. But I never really grew up with like a lot of technology at home. I was a go outside and play basketball or, go do something kid. So I don't even think I had like internet until I was like 16. So I never really took interest or grew up on computers. So learning that aspect for me was actually quite challenging. Just, the first time I opened up Ableton, it was like I was reading in Mandarin, like just everything looked so abstract to me. So learning the electronic side, and, that's still a thing. Like, since the pandemic hit, I've been doing a weekly series on Twitch. Every Sunday night I play music for people. We do a thing called Sunday Service. That's been great. But even for that, learning the ins and outs of live streaming, getting the audio to sound proper, getting the visuals set up and everything for that was a huge headache at first. So that the technology side has always been a bit of a challenge for me.
Yeah, I can relate to the challenges of technology. Like, although my production like for the show is always ongoing, and there's some things you're good at in life, and then there's some things you're not so good at. So that's why it's useful also to surround yourself with people that complement you and have different skills, and not to feel bad about that, but like take their expertise on board, and that's how you become like stronger overall.
Absolutely. I'm a strong believer in team. I don't think anybody makes it anywhere great without some bit of teamwork. So yeah, I've been really blessed in that way. I've had some good friends that have helped me get around the technology curves and got me heading in the right directions production wise. And yeah, I'm so grateful. I have amazing people in my life that always share my content, help spread the word. The Twitch thing has actually been incredible. I feel like we've built a really amazing community with that. I have my regulars that are there every Sunday. They never miss a set. We have a group on Facebook as well where all of the regulars just post like, inside jokes from the streams or post music ideas. I like to post in there and show them, projects that I'm working on. So yeah, without them, I would be nowhere. So yeah, super grateful for the teams that have helped me build to those level.
And I just actually joined Twitch the other week, so I have to stop by and explore Twitch.
Yeah, man. It's honestly, super, super thankful for that platform. Obviously during the pandemic, it's been extra useful, but I plan to keep utilizing it even when, life gets back to a bit of normalcy, just because it's such a great way to connect with people. For my listeners, instead of them just seeing a bunch of posts on my Instagram or whatever, they can come join the stream. I try to be as interactive as possible while I'm DJing for them. So I try to, keep up with the chats and keep up with the conversations. And yeah, it's truly been a community feel. So that's been probably the biggest silver lining to COVID times for me, is embracing that platform and learning it.
And so what have been some of the most memorable moments of your career to date, and why?
That's a good one. Well, I kind of touched on it earlier, so I will circle back to that. When I was speaking about the artist from the UK that I got to show Lake Louise in that area, he was actually one of the first artists that I discovered when I was really getting into house music. His name is Ill Phil. I would probably say that his mix show and a lot of his early releases were the biggest reason that pulled me toward where I was like, okay, house is where I want to be. So yeah, a few years into doing it, I got the opportunity to tour across Canada with Ill Phil. We spent just under a month together, all together, staying in Airbnbs together every night, traveling together, sightseeing, playing shows. Just the opportunity. I feel like that's a bucket list opportunity to get to travel with one of your biggest influences and pick their brain. And we're great friends now. We talk almost daily, so that's been a super highlight for me so far. Recently, so there's a platform called Beatport, which is kind of like the go-to place for music for the electronic music world. That's where most DJs go to, find new music for their sets, see what the hot new stuff is. So getting a number one release on there is kind of like a bucket list moment for most electronic producers, I would say. And within the last year, I've had 2 of my releases hit number one on the bass house charts, which is where my music mostly lands. So that was pretty humbling and pretty cool to see. And when those things happened, you never know who's going to discover you when you're charting on a site like that. So after hitting the number ones on Beatport, I had people like Tiesto, Don Diablo, Hardwell, Roger Sanchez, some of the like pioneers, some of the like huge names that headline the biggest festivals in the world have been playing my music, putting it in their Spotify playlists. So yeah, that's a pretty cool highlight for sure so far.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And so obviously, you've got social media, and then you've also got platforms like Twitch and the one that you just mentioned. So which of these platforms do you find the easiest to use for promoting your music and all of the different projects that you've got going on?
For like on a music platform side of things, I love Spotify. Even as a user, I love Spotify. I think that they've figured out their algorithms in such a precise way. The music that they suggest is always bang on for me. So I love, even just as a listener, I love Spotify. And as an artist, I love Spotify because it's so easy for us to customize our profiles. You can set your artist pick, you can create playlists. So I have playlists on my Prayer Hands Spotify profile where people can hear the music that I've been debuting in my Twitch streams, or if they see me live, they can find a lot of that music in my Spotify playlist. So I think that's really cool. So that's probably my favorite platform as an artist, like actually getting the product of the music out. Promotion wise, I probably tilt a little bit more toward Instagram. I just think that you can post content with a bit more substance there. And I found it's a great way to network with people outside of your local area. So for me, Instagram is probably a cooler one for reaching outside of your bubble. Facebook is kind of more like, I do love I'm grateful for Facebook as well, but it's more of like my local followers or local friends that get the promo on there. So, but I think you have to be well rounded. I think you have to do them all right now.
Yeah, so obviously we're living in a global pandemic. So how has that affected your work, and then how have you adapted and pivoted?
So yeah, it's been a challenge. It's been a pretty crazy time for sure. In music these days, most of the income for artists comes from playing live shows. It's touring and playing festivals and selling merch at those live shows. That was where I had made my living the last couple of years. So obviously with COVID restrictions, live shows have not existed during this time. So that was a pretty big punch to the gut at first. A lot of income gone, and at first it was so disheartening because I was like, man, I'm missing, who knows how long this is gonna last. I'm missing, some prime years of my career where I should be out performing and networking. So it was heartbreaking at first, but I've tilted my focus for the time being. As I said, I embraced Twitch and I've been having a lot of fun building on there, and that's given me a little sense of my old life back, getting to play music for people on there. And yeah, I've just been trying to take advantage of this time to create as much as possible, keep challenging myself sound wise and becoming a better producer. I've done a lot of reading during this time, just a lot of self improvement and inspirational type stuff. So been trying to find the silver linings and make the best of it, but definitely can't wait until hopefully light at the end of the tunnel soon and I can get back to seeing people dance in front of me again.
For sure, especially if that's what you know, right?
Yeah.
It's obviously it's very important to you. So I know this is a bit of a loaded question because we don't fully know the state of the world, but what's next? What's happening for the rest of the year? Maybe even into next year, as far as you know, right?
So yeah, another thing that's been kind of crazy with this time is I found a lot of artists have kind of stepped back, and which I don't blame them. Like, this is a new situation for everybody, so nobody knows how to properly handle it. But I found a lot of artists have kind of stepped back and gone quiet, and it just coincidentally lined up that I had already signed a bit of content to music labels, and I already had releases lined up. So I've stayed relatively busy content wise during the whole pandemic, and I feel that it's been kind of a blessing in disguise for me. I feel that my stock has actually kind of rose in the scene and in the industry. So I always want to keep up with that. So I do have quite a few releases lined up for the rest of the year. A week ago, actually, myself and another Canadian artist, Rumpus, just released a song on a really exciting record label that's been getting some great support within the industry. So we're really excited about that. Next month in June, I have a 3-song EP releasing on a label known as Uprise Music, which is a huge house music label out of New York. So really excited to see how that does. A lot of legends and artists that I look up to a ton have released with that label, so that should be a really cool moment. And then hopefully everything is obviously tentative regarding safety and restrictions, but I have been contacted for some bookings, some smaller scale festivals for late August, early September, and have begun hopefully planning out some tour dates from that point forward. So obviously we just got to pray that the vaccine works and everybody does their part in society to reach that herd immunity level. But fingers crossed, it sounds like things are going to start getting back to normal later in the year. So really excited for that.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've got a lot of exciting things going on, and that's what you can do at the end of the day is keep yourself busy, like spending this time. I know it sucks, but instead of dwelling as much as possible, like spending it on things that you might not, projects that you might not have found the time to do, like had the world been different, right?
Totally. Actually, yeah, kind of funny little story that happened. But before the pandemic, I was quite busy with like live shows, and if I ever had gaps in between live shows, I would usually either fill that in with like promoting for companies or even, pick up like some bartending gigs or something. So balancing that plus the creation side of things, plus the promotion side of things, it's quite the balancing act. So I used to always say what I would do for more hours in a day, and early into the pandemic last year, I was kind of sulking a little bit, just about the situation and all the live show bookings that I had lost because of it and stuff like that. And then I had a Facebook memory pop up, and the memory was me saying I would give anything for more hours in a day. So that kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, okay, time to suck this up. No more whining about this. Now you have those more hours in a day. What are you going to do with them? So from that point forward, I've tried to, I think I've built a pretty good daily routine that I'm pretty happy with myself, and I've been really productive. I feel like I've made a lot of the best music in my life to date during this time. So yeah, I think it's just finding the silver linings and what are you going to do with the cards that you're dealt, right? So.
Fantastic. And so, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Instagram and Twitter. My handle is I am prayer hands, ending with a Z. I did the Z because I felt like prayer hands spelt normally would probably be a pretty common Google search. So I put the Z at the end just because it makes it a little bit easier for people to find me on social medias or if they wanted to Google me. So yeah, Instagram and Twitter is I am prayer hands. Facebook just prayer hands ending with a Z. Twitch, if you guys want to come check out some of the live streams, we have so much fun on there. Just prayer hands ending with a Z. And yeah, I do my best to keep up with inboxes, love new friends. So feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions or feedback for me. And yeah, love to connect.
Awesome, Brett. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, man. This is great.
It's the Tea with Mike show.